Okay, entering part three on this, on Randall Carlson showing hidden mathematics and sacred geometry that's in space, time, cosmic cycles, and many of things that are shown in religion and so on. Let's just continue here and get on into the next portion of it or layer of an onion and go from there.
As it rotates on its axis, it spreads out towards the middle. Its equatorial diameter is greater than its polar diameter. And that, in fact, is critical to the Earth maintaining axial stability so that it's not doing this in its orbit around the sun. Because if it was doing that, it's likely that higher life would have never evolved in the first place. But due to the fact...
So if we didn't have this bulge that's in the center of Earth, giving it a little bit of extra levity on the outside, kind of like having the right weights on your tires to make it balanced, but it's balancing it to having a thick outer point, kind of like your tire does too a little bit, then you effectively get a balance that holds a spin. But due to all the planets pulling on us and the sun as we go around it and all these different things acting together and the moon playing a decent part, we end up having this procession of wobble.
The fact that it spins, it spreads out so that the diameter of the equator is 26 miles greater than the diameter of the pole. The sum total of all the gravity forces impinging upon the Earth from moon, sun, and planets acts upon that bulge as if it was a flywheel and is actually pulling it around.
If you were to get a basketball and get fairly decent at spinning it on your fingers, if you were to put some of that weighted lead tape that they have around the perimeter, the outside of it, and not just in one spot, because that would cause a wah, 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 but put it all the way around it, it would be a much more stable thing. Has anybody ever messed with a gyroscope? Whenever you pull that and you get it going, it'll actually hold itself at any angle that you put at it because of that gyroscopic effect. But if you put it straight up and down, it'll take quite a long time to start to get a wobble to it. Well, we've got a wobble, but gravity isn't affecting on us like that is anymore, or never was actually. We're in the floatingness of space. So still we get this wobble and pull that's on us. And like he said before, if we didn't have that effect, we're about 26 miles thicker at the stomach than we are at the head or the feet of the planet, if you will, or on the poles, then we probably wouldn't be here and no one would have ever talked about any of this. Let's continue.
And it's that leads to the great year. And what it does is over a period of half the great year, 1 million or 12,960 years, is it reverses the seasons. So that if we were able to jump in a time machine and go back 12,960 or ahead 12,960, we would find that everything was reversed. If we would keep the same Gregorian calendar in place, the seasons would have been reversed so that winter would be July and summer.
So what he's telling you here is that due to the process of precession we're running through it, and we have that lean to us, that slowly but surely we're getting out of kilter of making our calendar actually work for our perfect winter. And if you just let it keep going another 12,600 years, which is one of our numbers there, it tries to flop back around and correct itself. But effectively what it is our summer months become our winter months. So whenever it's winter up here, it's summer down there in the southern hemisphere, and this actually flip-flops. There were ancients that said things like this happened before, that had been so much that the sun came up from the other way. And there's been a book written about this, about the initial Adam and Eve, and something that was even blocked by the CIA and all these people, about people even being able to see it, saying that we have an extreme magneto shift every once in a while that happens to Earth, and whenever it does, we shrug off a lot of things. But everybody was trying to go against catastrophism back in the day, and we're just all in a time of prosperity. There's nothing to worry about. And then they started wanting to make up the new stuff for you to worry about, like heat differentials and so on, which I'm about to make another video just to show you one scale on it and say, well, now what they're saying, does that look like this? Anyhow, So you see where that stick is pointing, and today it's pointing at Polaris, and there's our pole star. It's the reason it's named that or whatever, and we have the North Pole and all those ideas. But he showed you it went around for a while, and it was in Cepheid. Then it was off the stars of Deneb. Then it was off the star of Vega, which is in Contact, that movie and everything, and people have made a lot out of Vega. In fact, it wasn't that the place that we got the oh wow signal from at one time. But you keep going around there, and then it's the constellation of Draco here, and it directly points towards Draco's head and eyes, and then it works around us. So there was a dragon there that was our pole star for some time here, but in this procession here, it changes back and forth. He's going to describe it in a different way, but let's go.
Summer would be, in fact, and then what we would see is that hemispherically, like we know that when it's winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer in the southern hemisphere. Well, those seasons would be reversed. They flip. It's a back and forth. It's an oscillation between the two hemispheres of the Earth over a period of 12,960 years.
Now, people have said, oh, the world flips over real quick, or it does this, or it does that. No, it just lines up differently because of this process of precession. Now, whether we go through this pole shift thing or not is another thing, because we've seen the magnetic north start running off over here, which we've only been checking it for a certain number of years, but does it oscillate and run around? Because it seems like it's just running off over here. Getting a little faster whenever it does it. Does it do it to a point and then snap back? Does it roll over slowly? Does suddenly the North Pole become a different point on the planet? All these are different questions that aren't answered here. We're looking at sacred geometry, but much can be answered about what you know about things and so on due to sacred geometry. Most of the things that you marvel over contain sacred geometry, especially in the Ancient of Ages and so on. We'll get into that deeper as we go.
This shows the wheel of the great year with all of the ages, the astrological months as they're known. And if we were to place ourselves right at this position right here where it says 0 years BP, BP means before present, and it also is 25,920 years. So what has been happening is that the vernal equinox, a hypothetical point in space, vernal equinox.
Short of him saying that, let me say this. So where we are is basically on this. We are at the end of Aries, or at the end of Pisces, after Aries, heading into the time of Aquarius again. So it's 0 over here and 2590. But if you'll look, if we went one station back of the zodiac, here's that number again, 2160. And if we go a whole season's capitude and come back to the time of Taurus, we're back at that 432 number. If we carry it on from there, we're at that 6480 number. If we carry it again, we're at 8640. Then we're at 108, or 10800, 10,800 years ago. And then there's that 1296, and then 15120, and 17280, which was mentioned before. 15 was not. Neither was the 19440, but that's 18 plus 1,440. 15120 again here before present, showing you if it's going that way. 2360, and then going on. But this is the zodiacal signs that we know. This is what a lot of those prediction things were built on and so on. It's still your part of your horoscope.
A hypothetical point in space occupied by the sun, when day and night are the exact same duration, that vernal point is moving through space as a result of this axial motion of the Earth. And ancient peoples would go to great lengths to try to observe and predict that motion.
And they also use that for their points of animals and so on. And of course, zodiac reminds you of the word zoo, because there is a lot of animals in the sky. That's really what it kind of means there in that idea. But when you get those 4 cardinal points going, that shows you something right there.
They would set up structures, oftentimes on a very large scale, that would be oriented to certain points in space, so that one could, from certain vantage points, such as the center of a ringed megalithic structure, for example, or the center of a temple that had an axial orientation to a certain point on the horizon, one could make minute observations of this slowly shifting vernal equinox, or, for example, the solstices. The vernal equinox and the solstices are 2 lines in space that are at right angles to each other. I'll show you a graphic in a minute. But in any case, as we go around this wheel, this great wheel here, this wheel of this cosmic wheel, what we're going to see is that each of these is a zodiacal sign. We have here Pisces, we have here Aquarius. So now the vernal equinox is poised. It's moving out of the star constellation of Pisces, moving into the star constellation of Aquarius. And so we say that roughly for the last 2,000, or if we want to be precise, 2,160 years, the vernal equinox has been transiting the constellation of Pisces, and therefore we've been in the Piscean age. Prior to that was Aries, prior to that was Taurus. We find that the beginning of modern recorded history goes back to the Taurian age. We can essentially express all of recorded human history between the latter part of the Taurian age through the age of Aries, the age of Pisces, and now into the age of Aquarius, right?
So hard to believe it's been going on for so much. Just to interject the thought here, how long would it take a people really trying to pay attention to this with a known forwarding of outcome, trying to become out of it? How many generations of people would it take to figure out that it all moves this much or that much, or eventually that it all comes around like a wheel and comes back around and we have the same thing going on? Again, the ancients used to make up stories like, oh, the Chaldeans, they knew stuff for over 230,000 years. What's that supposed to be? Because oddly, that's not one of the sacred geometry numbers. Are they being real about it? Well, their King's List, which we'll look at up here shortly, shows some sacred geometries definitely entrapped in it. Can we believe in that somewhat? Or that once they figured this out, that they projected backwards, and in doing so, they wrapped it all back around themselves, and then realized the great year. Because all that we have recorded history of is just this pie slice that's shown out here. Well, Randall's fixing to show you that becomes a whole 2/3, if not 3/4 of a piece of pie, all the way over here into this Eagle Scorpio thing here shortly.
Okay, if we go back, we'll notice though that the numbers here are the same numbers, the same family of numbers we've been looking at here. 2160, 4320, 6480, 8640, 10,800. We saw the number 108. I called your attention to that when I was asking you what was the atomic weight of silver, and which metal, which astronomical object is silver associated with? The moon, yes. 12,000.
The moon, a lot of people know that. And so again, I have to say it, the association of why silver bullets work versus a werewolf, which is attracted by the moon, is just a Bane situation. Even shown in trapped mythology here. And numbers too. Whenever they do certain potions and things, and you think it's just silly little shit about Eye of Newt and things like that. No, they were trying to incorporate things like this into it to give it some reality to where it couldn't be denied.
1,960 puts us exactly on the opposite end of the equinoctial axis. And then we see at right angles to each other, we have, this is the autumn-spring axis, and this is the summer-winter axis. And they're at right angles to each other, and the whole thing is rotating. You've got a picture that this propeller is rotating counterclockwise.
Let me just state right here, yeah, and So if we were to take off the back end of each one of these and let that thing spin around, what it's going to end up doing is drawing something that looks like a swastika. Whoops. How far does that symbol go back? Man, way, way back. It's not some World War II thing like what you're led to believe, and that everybody's supposed to feel ashamed to even think about where it comes from. You look at all the ancient places that are connected to it and the people that are connected to those ancient places, and you'll see it goes back quite some time.
So that in 6,480 years, Taurus will have moved down to the 0 point. Okay, we've seen this. So this is just a recap of those same numbers. And you will notice 8640, the number of seconds in one day. You'll note.
And you'll notice that all of a sudden these numbers seem to make a little more sense to you here, but also, how could it be that everything is trapped within this space cycle, time, cosmic cycle? It's like some type of, here's the formula to the matrix situation. Well, yes, that's what the ancients were looking for, the finger of God, and they found it a long, long time ago.
Notice that in a half a day, 43,200. Well, if you go back to the dawning of the age of Aries, 4,320 years ago.
432.
And these are just more interesting ways that these numbers show up. If you take 25,920 seconds and set each second corresponding to 1 year of the great year, you'll discover it's exactly 432 minutes.
432.
25,000.
720. 2160 or 216. 108. Then a factor of 10 at 1080 he's talking about.
1,920 hours in turn is 1,080 days. And 25,920 days is equal to 72 years in the sacred calendars.
What? Yeah, exactly. Seconds, minutes, hours, so on, it all connects up together. Time is a cyclical situation working off all of these huge numbers. Again, I used to see tablets with Sumerian stuff and they had these huge numbers on them. They thought they were just counting grain and stuff. People throw them in boxes and didn't pay any attention to them. Finally somebody did, and they go, you know, these people are using trigonometry and they're watching something go across the sky and they've got it all figured out, and it's a trigonometry that's easier to figure than ours too once we figured it out, because it's on base 60 and hexadecimal, which is like what our computers use inside their brains. What?
Which is interesting because I think most determinations of the average human lifespan right now in history is about 72 years. So you could think of a human lifespan as being equivalent to 1 day of the great year. There's an interesting proportional relationship going on there between the total precessional cycle of 25,920 years and one human lifetime.
It's the circle of life.
In the Vedas, they had various ways of encoding references to numbers. Let the Brahman hear the praise we utter. This hath the four-horned buffalo emitted. 4 are his horns, 3 are the feet that bear him, his heads are 2, his hands are 7 in number.
What is that? Well, it's in the Rig Vedas, it's in the ancient India stuff too, and he's going to tell you that they have a connection that you can see just in the mathematics that they use here shortly. They're both from Aryan type people, where this concept that we've been talking about all along comes from. But here's a key point of them doing it in a certain area. Then he's going to talk about the ages they have and stuff like this written in their stuff, and it's going to show you another connection here. But let the Brahman hear the praise we utter. Well, the Brahman, it was the highest caste form other than the Aryans. So the Aryans were the top caste of Brahmins, and so on. It goes down from there. And let them hear the praise we utter. This has the four-horned buffalo emitted. When is there a buffalo that's ever four horned? Makes no sense. Four are his horns, three are the feet. Well, it'd make it sense if you said, well, there's not 3 feet, there's four. Four, so 4 feet, his feet are four, his horns are three, and he's got a unicorn and one going on each side. 3 are the feet that bear him, and his heads are 2, so it's a double-headed thing in the first place, and people are like, what? And his hands, as if his feet were something different on a buffalo, are the number 7 in number. What can we figure out of that? Well, they're talking about the Yuga cycles when they're talking about this. So here, let me show you the connective here.
Notice 4, 3, 2, raised to the 7th power, gives you the number of years in the ancient Vedic time span, the Kalpa, 4,320,000,000 years, which I find to be suspiciously close to the modern estimate for the age of the universe, which is about 4.5, or the age of the Earth rather, which is about 4.5 billion years.
Isn't that amazing? There we go with that 432 sun worshiping situation again going off of it, which you're going to find out white sun worshiping, or that sun worshiping is hooked up to the sun, and so is that number there here just shortly. And another set of numbers, because all this comes from early sun worship and so on like that. But when we say sun worship, we're actually watching where the thing rises and sets and all the things goes to it. Apparently for a long, long time, to end up getting this down to another level. But this major kalpa that they have here is 1,000 Mahayugas, and it comes out to seemingly the age of our solar system.
So this was one way they had of encoding or embedding references to these sacred numbers in the Vedas. And this is probably some of the oldest writings extant where this canon of numerology is presented.
Oh, but it's presented in different ways before this, and even cave art and stuff, which he's going to show you, that I've actually talked about it many times, and he's going to go, yep, like right here.
In ancient Sumeria, from the various writings of historians like Berossus and others, and from the Sumerian clay tablets, we're able to find that there were references to 10 pre- or antediluvian kings. What does pre-diluvian mean? Before the flood, right. So they had this
belief that there was this great flood that came over. Well, we've actually found that there was a great flood that happened to the Sumerians. The problem is it was never supposed to happen again. There's supposed to be cycles of fire and water and stuff, and he's going to talk about that a little bit later. But in that idea, it wasn't supposed to happen. And the rainbow and all that stuff, remember? Well, that apparently, looking at it, because that was the second time, and then Abraham left Ur and started worshiping other gods. So it shows you that the gods of creation they're trying to talk about in the Bible were the Sumerian gods, and that concept of creation, which involves dragons and so on and everything else, these sacred geometry numbers, right? Well, if you look at their kings list, it shows you something that's not conspicuous. It's right in your face, but only for the initiated to know.
Belief that there were 10 kings reigning before the flood, and you'll notice the numbers that they ascribed to each of the kings, the reign. Those numbers now should all be becoming familiar to you. You've seen a bunch of them already. There's 43,200, 64,800, 36. You'll notice 64,800 is presented twice, actually 3 times. The total, though, 432,000 years. That's a long span of time. Do you think they meant this literally, or is this strictly symbolic and figurative?
Yes, you can figure that out for yourself, but here we have this idea that if you add it all up, it's 432,000 again. A number that's going to come up whenever we go into the pyramids and the sizes and the way that things are, and why they built it to that size, which I've said that statement in about 4 or 5 videos without showing you the shit that goes with it. Later in this series, we're going to be showing you the stuff that goes with it. But all the way down to Zistheros, right? And so this is the great flood that came out, and everybody used to live a whole long time, blah, 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 but their numbers here are all sacred geometry number. Even 108, 3600, 468, 64,800 repeated times, and so on. But crazily too, they're all denominations of that number, because eventually they all add up to that number. Now, the people that knew this type of stuff would know what he's talking about, but the people that did not know wouldn't have any idea what he's talking about. You right now, when you first saw that, did you think that he's talking about actually looking at the stars for 432,000 years? Do you think these kings lived this long? Do you think aliens landed on the planet because they lived all of these years? Do you think they lived exactly 43,200, not 207? That they had this timer built into them that kicked them all off? Or were they actually talking about great cycles of time that went all through, and so they're claiming that they have a heritage back before anybody knew any of this shit, so basically we're covered.
Is it possible that the king could have reigned for 36,000 years? I tend to think it was symbolical, but you know, it is interesting that one of the universal traditions from ancient cultures is that before the flood, and all the cultures from all over the world recognized that there was a great flood, or even floods that decimated humanity at various times, but they're all...
You know, that actually could be people having mythologies going all the way back to the Younger Dryas event where it all flooded up. Your Bible even has hints of it whenever they say that it came from the sky, but it also came from below and filled up from that. And there's this belief that, of course, back then that people were bobbing on a cork, or sometimes even on the back of a gigantic turtle was the earth, and we were just a parasite on it. Seriously. And in that, somebody just pushed that turtle down a little bit underwater, and we all go, gurgle, 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 gurgle. And then that's what actually happened to us. Well, in the Sumerian flood, it only got flooded there, and it flooded up to 18 cubits deep at this one certain point, and Woolley and these other guys actually found part of the flood. The problem is it doesn't go up above the mountains or anything, and if it flooded there, why would you float to Mount Ararat? This is all making a mythological connection. Mount Ararat is in the Caucasus Mountains, talking about things like that. And then now we know today, kind of the area they're talking about over in there, that's the area of Göbekli Tepe and Tastapeller and all these 14 sites that were this great place from before. And you hear the Sumerians talk about the lords of Arata from way back when. And then everything fucked up, and it took, what did it take, almost 5,000 years or more than 4,000 for them to even start getting their crap back together? What?
All pretty much in agreement that prior to the flood, the human lifespan was much longer than it is today, which I find we've all heard about Methuselah living to be 969 years, right? Or Lamech being 777. It seems that they had, in the biblical ages, they seem to have lived about an order of magnitude greater than our modern ages.
Well, an order of magnitude, and that is one way to think about it. But another way to think about it is these people, other than having the other calendar we were showing you before, also had a lunosolar calendar where there ends up fitting not 12 but 13 moons inside of a year, with a remainder of 11. And actually in the Göbekli Tepe guy that I was talking about earlier, this Martin guy, showing you that